Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and a link in the info box once the video has rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the debate, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, I will eject you, and if you are ejected, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show, as sharing the show increases the audience, which in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we do have a few guests. We've got Ranty, who's in first. How you doing, Ranty?
Hi, good, thank you.
Good to have you. And Sleeping Warrior, how you doing?
Aye, is good. All is well.
Excellent. And Spurs Chemo, how you doing?
Good morning. Good morning to all.
Good morning to you too. I think Ranty and Anthony have got to be in their bonnet for Miles Davis, so maybe we can start there.
Well, I think let's give it in 10 minutes and let's get people's bums on seats, because the more people that see this, the better. I can see why going it first is good, but more people that see this, I mean, Miles is literally caught out lying again. Now, bear in mind that I get called liar for everything to do with the Simbees observation, right? And I've not actually lied once. All I've done is done what their model tells me. Okay. Now, what we're going to show you shortly is Miles literally flip-flopping again, just like he did with the Bibby Wave Master 1. He's now flip-flopping, right? And he calls me a liar. So in a minute, we'll present and we'll show exactly what Miles says, does, and lies about. And you can decide yourself whether or not this guy's lying or whether he's mistaken. And I don't think anybody's going to come down with he's mistaken. So if anybody's out there that can get in touch with Miles, put up a flag, see if we can get him in. Because I'd like to see him account for his explanation here, his nonsense. So if we can get Miles back on the panel today, that would be brilliant. Because me and Ranty are calling you. You're a liar, Miles. Let's get it dealt with.
Yeah, essentially what's happening is he's going around and he's making video after video. He tried it with me. Eventually, it took him 2.5 months to come back and publish a video exonerating me. This is after spending 2 months running around calling me a liar and producing video after video. And now he's doing the same thing with you. And essentially what he's done, like I say, is his title of the video is Anthony Riley lying again. And no, you're not. You've always stayed to the point that he's making is, are you lying about the elevation height? Well, you're saying your elevation height is what Google Earth says. That's it. You've never said you've measured the hill and this is what you're going to claim is the height. You've said that you've done your elevation is what Google Earth says, right? And then secondly,
if you remember,
he lies in it. He lies in the video himself. He calls you a liar in the title of his video and then blatantly lies in the video himself.
Yeah. Now, if you remember back into the debates.
How you doing, new guest? Good to have you in, Miles.
Morning.
Here he is,
Miles. So,
lovely Miles.
I'll introduce Miles. Miles, thanks for showing up. We're going to show how you've lied about your elevation, and you're now backtracking to make it look a little bit more favourable for you.
Go ahead.
Let's go. All right, right. So in that case, the best way for me to do this, because we need the sound, am I better off dropping out the hangout and then doing it through Skype?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. One sec.
Why? I will say that if I've made an error at any point, then I'm quite happy to admit that.
Okay, well, when he's presented, let him present what he's got to say. It's only.
I've just got to move my other page. I forgot to do that. There we go.
Yeah, it's probably only a couple of minutes. It's 2 separate clips in 2 separate videos, and afterwards, you know, if you feel that you've made an error, that would be great.
That's fine.
Admit that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's not me that I'm presenting. I think Anthony's going to present in a moment on Skype.
We'll start with Anthony's presentation, do we?
Just playing a 30-second clip in one video of yours, and then probably a minute clip on another video.
If Nathan lets me know when he's got it on screen, we can start.
Yep, you're up and running. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is the first. Ranty sent me a message on Skype and he's itemized 3 references that he wants me to play. This should be the first one, and hopefully we should get Miles speaking about. Well, I'll just play it and then Ranty can tell me when to stop.
On the beach, this slopes more gradually, so somewhere down here would be average sea level. Now, we took the video at, I think, around about 3:30 in the afternoon, that sort of time. It might have been a little later, I might have been heading to 4 o'clock and later when those turbine videos were being taken. But high tide was just past. So it's essentially at high tide on the day that we took the videos.
So he's saying it's high tide had just passed.
We have a timestamp of when you took the wind farm videos. Bearing in mind that sunset was at 4:08 on that particular day.
Yeah. So I've got to open the tide times on that particular day. Can we just double check that we've got the dates and the times right?
Keep going down. Scroll down.
Hang on,
down,
what was
down,
the date and time?
Scroll down. Roll your mouse down. Anthony, please, just go. Yeah, keep going. There we go. To the left, on the bottom, you see that graph at the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you hover over the left-hand side of that, Sunday 7th to the left, Sunday 7th. Keep going to the left. That's Tuesday. There's Sunday. There's the afternoon. There we go. So you got the times there. So basically at 15:28, I think it was 7 meters 64, and at high tide it was 3:15, and it was at 7 meters 69.
Yep.
So it was high tide.
Yep.
So you took it at high tide, and then you you put a video out yesterday. And I think
can I interject there? Okay, yeah, I think the time the video that I haven't checked these times, and I'm quite happy if the times are slightly different to what I said. But we started filming at just after high tide. We filmed for a considerable amount of time while we were there. So
we're agreeing with you, Miles.
We were filming. Can I finish? Thank
you.
Yeah. Can I? Thank you. The tide was going out while we were filming.
Okay.
We agree.
But however, my point regarding elevation at that location has absolutely nothing to do with high tide. In fact, I make an allowance for the fact that it was high tide and not mid or low tide.
Okay. Well, can I just let you know that we know that sunset on that day was at 4:08, so it went dark at 4:08.
No, it didn't go dark at 4:08. This is your complete misunderstanding of what sunset means. Sunset means that the sun is now completely below the horizon. However, there is still a considerable amount of light at the horizon. And if you notice the wind turbine video, you will see that there is an orange glow behind the turbines. And this is the orange glow left in the sky after sundown.
Sure,
at least for some.
The point he's making is that when the sun sets in winter, it's not long after it's pitch black.
Just before sunset, I've got the same. I was at the same location last weekend, and I have the same similar footage as what you have, and it was still light.
Yeah, it's still like quite a long time after.
No, I mean the sun was still up.
There are websites that give you last light, I think, and first light. Values or times at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like?
I think what
we have no issue with whether we were filming at exactly at high tide, just after high tide, just before high tide. Really makes no difference to
the height.
Estimated elevation.
You did state 3:30 in your video.
Sorry,
I mean, at the time when you produced this video a month ago, you did state that you filmed at 3:30.
I said it was about 3:30. I did not collect. Okay. This is Al K's video. I may actually have the video.
We're agreeing with you.
Now, can you go Anthony, on that time?
The metadata to identify the precise time, if you'd like.
At what time are you at now there, Anthony? What time does that say? Is that 1944?
I don't know exactly where I was then.
Yeah, if you go sort of like mid-tide now between, there we go, keep going across, a bit more.
Mid-tide is roughly...
A bit more to the right. A bit more.
1808.
Sorry?
Call it 6:30.
About 6:30, yeah, that's about right. So about mid-tide is about 6:30 at night. I'm certain it wasn't still light at 6:30. In the sunset was at 4:08. Anyway, would you like to play that next?
It wasn't light at 6:30. It's certainly not. No.
So at this point, Miles, we agree with you. Your time and what you said at that point, we agree with. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not arguing it.
Okay,
if you want to retract that now, that's up to you.
No, I'm not retracting anything. You know, if there's an error in something I said, I mean, obviously, when a lot of the time when we're discussing these things, you know, remembering exactly what time things happened and exactly what time you might have said they happened in a previous conversation or a previous video is not easy, and I certainly don't have time to go back and double and triple check every single detail. So
yeah, that's the problem with live.
It'll be within you know, within reasonable you know, sort of reasonably close to what I say all the time. But if I say it was 3 o'clock and it was 4 o'clock, if I say it was 3 o'clock and it was 3:30, you know, it's not a big deal. Not on this, but unless I'm making a definite point about the time, in which case then you try and be absolutely accurate.
What, like you were with the estimation of the tide height?
You mean estimation of tide height? All I was saying was that it was about high tide. It was just after high tide that we took the video.
Perfect.
Okay.
Right. So just after after high tide, right? Could you just play the next video, Anthony, please?
5, 10, 15 meter elevation to here. That's 15 meters above average sea level, but we know the tide was not out halfway. It was less than halfway out. It was between high tide and a halfway point. So we are somewhere between 10 meters and 15 meters. I split the difference, plus a meter for the tripod height. So splitting the difference, we say somewhere around 12.5 meters, perhaps a little bit more, perhaps a little bit less. And again, if we go to the metabunk.
Perfect, that's fine. So essentially what you've done there is you've just knocked 2.5 meters off your elevation height.
Not at all. No, not
absolutely. Because you've just said somewhere between
Banty, can I
and high tide. And then you just said between 10 meters and 15 meters, we'll call it, splitted it in the middle. So we'll take it to 12.5 meters. So you've knocked 2.5 meters off.
Ranty, stop a second and let me explain. If you go back to that Ordnance Survey map, can we put that Ordnance Survey map back up?
You just told us that it wasn't high tide.
Ranty, if you keep interrupting, you won't learn anything.
Well, I want you to concede it, Miles. You've just told us, Miles. Miles. No, Miles. Let me just speak for a second. I've not said anything. I've not interrupted. You've just told us on this show that you were at high tide. On your video, you say something completely different and then make an adjustment. Miles, can I just finish? Miles, can I just finish? Miles, can I just finish, please? Miles. So you say something completely different and then make an adjustment to your height based on that difference.
So let me explain.
No. I want you to concede that you have adjusted your height based on a lie. You weren't at somewhere between mid-tide and high tide, as you've just said in this video. That's completely incorrect. And you have made an adjustment to your elevation based on that. That's what's been pointed out to you. Now just concede that you are incorrect.
Nathan, let me explain my reasoning, and then if you still have an issue with it, please chip in. But let me explain the reasoning. There is 10 meters between the 15-meter contour line and the 5-meter contour line. The 5-meter contour line is above the average high water mark. That is an average of where high tide comes to.
Evidence, please. Evidence, please.
Yeah, can you prove that? We went through this yesterday. How many different tide heights
there's a blue line on the Ordnance Survey map. That blue line is average high water mark.
You've just said it twice. He's just asked you to provide evidence to prove that that is classed as an average high tide level.
Well, if you go to an Ordnance Survey site and
he's asking you to prove it, not asking us to prove it. You prove it. It's your assertion.
What are you saying about average high tide, Miles?
Statement of what Ordnance Survey maps do. If you want to dispute that, then by all means, let's go to an Ordnance Survey map
sorry,
site.
let's just play that clip again, please, Anthony.
Yeah.
What were you saying about average high tide, Miles?
Sorry?
You mentioned the word average high tide.
It is the average high water mark.
Okay. So how high do you think the average high tide mark is?
It's where that blue line is. High
Okay.
tide varies considerably from depending on the gravity from the moon and so on. Sometimes it's, as you're showing in that video clip, is going to be battering against the cliffs, which is why they erode. Sometimes high tide will stop considerably further down the beach, and that is the situation as it was when we were there, or when I've been there on 3 occasions now. So
this takes us back to the question. This takes us back to the question that Nathan asked, which you laughed at, which was in Alkay's video when he was doing his measurements. Nathan said that Alkay would be wet, and you laughed at that.
Only in a situation where there is an exceptionally high tide.
Well, exceptionally high tide or not, it would still be high tide, and you would probably be wet, given evidence by the erosion of the land.
Not for any of the tides that I have witnessed there, as I've seen probably 4 or 5 high tides there now. And
Okay,
not one of them
just to
has
provide
come
evidence of the high
up to
tide.
even
Can you
the
provide
top of
evidence
the
of your
pebbles
observation
here.
height, please, Miles? Can you show us how high the tide was when you were there, please?
Did you say none have come to the pebbles, and how come the pebbles are wet?
Higher than the top of the pebbles you can see in this picture.
Any evidence
of
of
that? When I've been there.
Oh, you mean that line that's going across next to the white overshoot pipe, next to the left of the person holding the pipe?
Yeah, where the pebbles hit the concrete, where the pipe is. I haven't seen a high tide beyond that point. I don't doubt they go way beyond that point at times.
Just played one. Literally 20 seconds ago, it was just played on screen.
So hang on, Miles. Can I just ask this? Would you agree that this stitch scarring of the landscape is evidence of erosion caused by the tide?
Absolutely, I have no issue with that at all.
So is your position that the high tide wasn't high enough on that day, therefore you've made it lower? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying, go back to the Ordnance Survey map.
Well, hang on. Just go back to that clip that he did yesterday, Anthony. And let's listen again to what he said yesterday in his video yesterday.
Can we go back to the Ordnance Survey map?
Well, no, this is all about what your video said yesterday.
Let's see what you actually said.
I have been interrupted whilst trying to explain what I was saying.
I'm going to play the clip.
The tide height. The second piece of information is, of course, the Ordnance Survey map, which shows 5, 10, 15 meter elevation to here. That's 15 meters above average sea level, but we know the tide was not out halfway. It was less than halfway out. It was between high tide and a halfway point. So we are somewhere between 10 meters and 15 meters.
That isn't true though, is it, Miles?
That is an absolute lie. Right. It was 5 centimeters below high tide. 5 centimeters.
And that's fine. I'm quite happy to accept 5 centimeters below high tide.
What do you mean that's fine? We're pointing out that you've blatantly distorted your figures, and you're saying that's fine. It's not fine in the slightest. This is our issue with you, Miles. Why are you saying it's fine? It's not fine. It's not fine in the slightest.
Because what you
Miles,
did,
you've gone from a point that is average high tide to extreme high tide, and you've gone for a point in the middle. Is that right?
I'm just
what he's done. Yeah, he's gone for a point in the middle between high and mid tide, and then he's gone for a point between 15 and 10 meters and divided that in half. So he's used the fact that the tide was at halfway between the high tide and mid tide to divide the 10 meter and the 15 meter line.
Yeah,
that's what he's done.
We need to see what the tide actually was, Miles.
So
have you got any evidence to show us what the tide actually was?
For 5 centimeters. So he's completely lying.
Ranty, that is not what I have done. Can I please now?
Yes, you did, because in the next breath you then divide the next. In the next breath you divide the 15 and the 10.
Yeah,
Ranty, can I explain what I did? Please.
You just heard what you did. You just said it on the video.
No, you haven't.
Yes, we did. We just heard it.
Because you've misunderstood completely and you're misinterpreting it.
Well, hang on. Let's play the clip again, and then you can explain.
So let me explain it.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Anthony. Let's hear the clip again.
Let's play the clip one more time, and then you can explain right afterwards, and nobody will interrupt you.
The Ordnance Survey map, which shows the tide height. The second piece of information is, of course, the Ordnance Survey map, which shows 5, 10, 15 meter elevation to here. That's 15 meters above average sea level, but we know the tide was not out halfway. It was less than halfway out. It was between high tide and a halfway point. So we are somewhere between 10 meters and 15 meters.
No, you're at high tide, Miles.
Listen.
I split the difference, a plus a meter for the tripod height. So splitting the difference, we say somewhere around 12.5 meters, perhaps a little bit more, perhaps a little bit less. And again, if we go to the metabunk and use it as a converter metric to imperial, we put in 12.5 meters, we get 41 feet.
Is that enough, Ronty?
That's plenty. You heard him in one breath say that it was between high tide and mid tide, which is also between 10 meters and 15 meters. So he will split the difference and call it 12.5. You just heard him say that. He took 2.5 meters off his elevation when he was at high tide.
Can I explain that that again, please? So
you can listen to your own words again, Miles.
No, I've heard my own words. I know what I said, and I know what I mean. Now, can I please?
What you mean and what you say and what you've done is try to knock 8 or 9 meters off your elevation height, which is
8 or 9 meters.
Sorry, 8 or 9 feet. Sorry, my mistake. A missaying.
Right,
8 or 9 feet.
Explain the reasoning, and then you can tell me if it's wrong. Okay.
Go on then.
Right. Thank you. Can I have the? Can you put the Ordnance Survey map up on screen again? Okay, it's a little blurry on my screen, but never mind. There are 3 contour lines above the high water mark, which is the average high water mark, which is the blue line. Yes. So the first one of those is 5 meters above average sea level. The high water mark is below that point. It is lower than the 5 meter point. And therefore, there is some height between the lower contour line and the high water mark. Now, we can't establish exactly how much height that is because there is no... Can we have that back, please?
I'm just wondering why you wouldn't go with the tide heights.
The tide height does not relate to that. Okay.
How? I'm a bit confused, Miles. Sorry, can you just give that a bit more clarity? Sorry, the tide height doesn't relate to... Sorry,
can I finish?
I just want to get a clarity on that, what you've just said. So you said the tide height doesn't relate to it. What doesn't it relate to? Why are you talking over me constantly? Just answer my question, Miles.
Between high and low tide, it's not given as a reference to average high tide, average low tide, or mean sea level.
But Miles, we know that it was about 7.35 meters, and you've put 12.
That's 7.35 meters difference between low tide and high tide.
You were at high tide.
No, Miles, this is the measurement of the tide on that day at that time.
Sorry?
No, Miles, this is the measurement of the tide on that day at that time.
That's right. But it's the measurement of that day, not reference to... What's that reference to?
Okay, I have a...
How high the tide was when you took your observation, Miles. What part of that isn't clear? The tide was high and there's the measurement of it. You've taken off a measurement from that.
For a second and listen. Okay, that's not reference to average sea level.
You weren't at average. You were at high tide. What difference does average make if you're at high tide when you take your observation?
And Nathan, that 7 meters.
You've got the rumpus stutter going on. It seems like you've got the rumpus stutter. What's going on? Why can't you just explain why you didn't use the high tide figure when you were at high tide?
Nathan, I'm trying to.
Because it's more favourable to you to use the lower value.
Again and again and again. Now that 7.5 or 7.25 meters or whatever it is not height above average sea level that the high tide was at.
So what is it then, Miles?
Well, you tell me.
It's the height of the water.
You tell me, and you find a reference that
says
just
told you. He's just
Right,
told
I'm not
you.
gonna-
related to mean sea level, because that's what you're trying to claim.
No,
Okay,
high
would it
tide
not-
is what you took the observation at. You claimed it was something else, and we're asking why.
Okay. Let's go back to the Ordnance Survey map again.
No.
No,
Let's
no.
forget the Ordnance Survey map. Now you show us how high the tide was on footage that you took, which you must have took. You're interested in accurate data, right?
The video that was taken on that particular day was taken by Al.
But you said you also did plenty of filming yourself.
That's what you just said at the beginning of this film.
But whether I've got a picture now of it actually at high, I haven't.
What's with this stutter? Why are you stuttering? Why are you stuttering? What's with this stutter?
Can I just make the audience aware that this is the highest tide of the week? Within that 7-day period, this is the highest point, and Miles happened to be there at the highest point of the highest week.
The high tide doesn't matter to me.
It matters to us. That's why we're putting you against the wall on it, and you're stuttering like a gibbering idiot.
Miles,
Nathan, why
do you remember,
are you being so
Miles?
personally abusive?
Miles, do you remember when we calculated? Me and Ranty went back and measured this, and we measured it from the pebbles here because that's where the water level was. Because we checked the high tide.
Right.
We checked
Can you just
it.
stop there, Anthony? Yeah. Anthony, can you just stop there a minute? This is brilliant.
How did you measure that?
I physically measured it, and with a tape and using trigonometry, we did it twice.
Okay,
and they both came out to the same exact height. And I'll tell you what they were. You see that person standing right there?
Yeah.
To the top of the where you were stood, 25 feet, right? And you say that that's high tide right there. I'm telling you now, that's about 3 feet drop. It doesn't look it, but I've been there and I know that location. That's 28.
Ranty,
Can you let him finish, please, Miles? Can you just let him finish? He's talking about data that you don't have. Shut up, Miles. Let him finish. Shut your mouth.
No, actually, Randy, I'm going to call you on that. From my memory, I recall that being 19, not 23.
No, it was.
And now you can't even agree on what your height was.
No, you can't agree on what tide it was, Miles. That's what we're pulling you up on. It's your claims that we're testing here. Your assertions.
And you're not letting me explain what my claims are based on.
So, okay, let me just for my benefit then, and I'll shut up, Miles. Just for my benefit, Miles. Just for my benefit, please. How high are you claiming where you stood, which is at the top of these steps, according to your
40.
video? How high are you claiming that is above where the water was when you took the observation?
40
I would claim that the camera height was around 40 feet above the height of the water.
Right, so the water... Sorry, Miles, just let me get some clarity. So the water for this observation is around about where his feet are. Evidenced by the high tide.
Nowhere near where his feet are.
We don't have evidence from you. What we have seen is evidence of a tide going over the top of this. That's what we've just seen.
Yes.
Right, so let's just ignore your claim without evidence, Miles, and point out that if this guy is 6 foot, there is absolutely no way on God's green earth that that's 40 feet.
And that particular tide was the highest tide of the week. And Miles was there at high tide.
It's really not important.
It is absolutely important.
That is the paramount
that
position.
observation that you've said is 40 feet or 39 feet, can you make it big? That's what you're claiming is 40 feet.
I'm saying that above the height, 40 feet. Plenty of evidence to back that up if you would let me present it.
Yeah,
show your tide. Show how high you were off the tide.
100 meters away and walked up some steps and tried to calculate the height of this ridge by climbing up some steps.
Not at all.
100 meters away.
Just get it clear for the audience once more. Sorry, Ranty, to interrupt you. According to Miles Davis, right, this is 40 feet, according to Miles Davis.
No, that's not my claim.
Yes, it is. You've just claimed it. I asked you clearly, and you gave me an answer. Above the water, you said 40 feet. That's what you just said.
My claim is the camera height was 40 feet above the height of the water at the time.
All right, Miles.
You're not looking at
this person you, Miles?
Time. You're not looking, and that bank is, as we've already heard from Ranty, what, 25 feet?
25 feet. For all those steps, right down to the bottom, right down to where that rock is beneath that guy's feet, is 25 feet.
Yeah.
Right, and there's a water line there. There's a water line where you can see where the last high tide was.
That's not it's not a water line for the last high tide, Ranty.
Oh, are you sure about that?
Yes.
Hang on. I would assert.
Why isn't there a similar water line on the rock?
What?
Hang on a sec. Look at this high tide. It's the highest tide of the week. I'm going to claim
Yes.
that it wouldn't be the lower value. It's more likely to be up and over because I've been there loads of times and that water level does go up to there. That's why all these rocks are here to stop the erosion.
It will go up there. It will go up that high, but on that occasion, it wasn't. That we
Can
have.
you produce
We
a
have
video?
9
Can you show us
meter
some evidence
tides
of this?
there.
I'm calling
Okay,
you a liar, Miles.
You went there.
because
You
Yeah,
this
we're
did
all
all
tells
this
us-
calling
all-
you a
you did
liar.
all this.
Basically,
I want
Miles,
to
you're
see
an
the
outright
height.
liar.
I
We
want to
all
see the
know
height
it.
of
You're
the
lying
tide.
now. You're lying
I want to
now.
see the
You've
height
got a
of the
picture
tide.
of a cliff on screen and you're claiming it's 40 feet. Total bollocks.
I want
It's
to see the
not
height of the
total
tide.
bollocks.
How tall is this
and
person, Miles?
If you would allow me to present the evidence that
Hang
it
on,
is
Miles.
40
How tall
feet,
is this person, please? Roughly. Can we go with 6 feet for easy maths?
Yeah, listen. Don't show contour lines
You're
or
showing-
maps or anything. Show us the video of the tide when it was in. Show us the video when the tide was in.
I don't have that to hand, and it would
Why
take a
wouldn't
while.
you have it to hand?
Well,
Why
Why
shut
should
lying,
I
You
have
did all
it to
this
Miles?
hand?
stuff and you didn't actually capture the tide height. Are you pulling our chain here?
Yeah, he is. He's literally trolling.
He's just a liar,
But
just dishonest
not-
liar, misrepresenting
not
his
a-
evidence, claiming his
Yeah,
heights
You
he's
did
not at.
tons of videos all day.
Why
Let's
won't
just scale
you
it. Let's
accept-
just scale this guy. We'll assume he's 6 foot. Let's do it live. Let's scale him. Let's cut him out and scale him up the cliff and see how big he is and see how high Miles thinks 40 feet is.
I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing. When you finished having your jibber jabber session,
Jibber
you
jabber
can
about
come
your
back and
lies.
get an
Your lies and your
explanation.
misrepresentations.
height.
That's what you're
Show
doing.
us the
You're a
water
liar,
in.
Miles. We're calling you a liar because you are a liar.
Okay, that's
You've already
fine.
lied
Miles.
anyway. You said that you was between mid tide and high tide, and then you knocked 2.5.
I have explained why I said it was 40 feet. I will continue to explain why I said it was 40 feet. It was based on the Ordnance Survey map information.
Why? You were
And
there.
I
Why do you need
accept
the
that the
Ordnance
Ordnance
Survey when
Survey
you
map
can take a
information is
picture of the
correct.
tide there and then? And it's not like it's a huge distance that you're measuring.
So let's say that this guy's 6 feet, 6, 12, 18, 24, right? And you
do
still think
understand
it's
how
40 feet, Miles?
inappropriate that measurement that you're doing is, don't you?
Pardon?
Sorry, we can guesstimate that is nowhere near 40 feet just
so
by
you're
looking
allowed
at
to
it.
guess. You're allowed
Yeah,
to
we are allowed.
guesstimate,
Yes,
but
we
I'm
are
not
allowed to
to
guess
use Ordnance
because
Well, we've
Survey.
measured it,
obviously
Miles.
that's not 40
We've
feet.
measured it,
Obviously,
and I'm
just
happy
by
that you're
looking at
lying.
it.
So
Obviously
we're showing
not.
easily that it's easily demonstrable that you're lying.
How is using an Ordnance Survey map to make an estimate of your elevation
Because it
lying?
is measured, Miles. Calculations
How is
don't prove
using
things.
an Ordnance Survey map to estimate your elevation, how is that lying? Please
Because
explain.
calculations don't prove anything. Mathematics isn't proof.
What
Calculations
intelligent
isn't
people
that
proof.
go
doesn't
along
answer the question.
Measuring
How is that
is
lying?
the high tide where the water is? If you're going to be doing estimated filming, the first thing you do is show where you are. Like we do. We do a panoramic and we say, there's the high tide, there's where we are, this is our location, then we do the video. Why didn't you do that?
Because
It's-
at
it's a
the
genuine question.
time we were there, can I explain this? At the time we were there, the height of this particular location was completely irrelevant. What we noticed when we were there,
This is the first video you put out.
Hang on. The
will you
height
be
is not
quiet and
completely
let me
irrelevant when
finish?
it's
The height is
above
entirely
water that's here.
irrelevant when you're putting it into the maths to claim that things have gone behind the curve of the Earth based on your height. It's absolutely pertinent.
Yeah. You're dishonest, Miles. You're
Nathan,
lying.
Nathan, would you please just allow me to explain and actually get a whole sentence out instead of being interrupted every single time I start to speak?
Well, stop
At the
lying then, and we'll
time
let you
we were-
speak.
You see, I didn't even get to start that sentence.
Stop
That's 'cause you're
lying,
about
and
to tell
we'll
us
let
that
you
you've got it
speak.
from the Ordnance Survey maps when you've been there and you could have tilted your camera down and just filmed the sea, and you didn't. You went to the Ordnance Survey maps and estimated it, and then made very specific measurements, put them into a
footage in
calculator,
my
and
video
claimed the Earth is a
is
sphere.
not-
You're a liar.
It's not my
This is
footage.
not 40 feet. What's on screen now is nowhere near 40 feet.
Because will you let me actually explain? Okay, can I have the floor for just a couple of minutes?
Sure.
Thank
I
you.
won't, I'm not going to interrupt.
Without interruption, please.
I won't
if you-
interrupt.
Okay. At the time we were there, this was the first visit. This is when I was there with Al Kay. The video in my the video footage in my clip that I posted was Al Kay's video footage. not mine. I did not get, I got a lot of footage of the wind turbines, but Al got much better stuff of the Ormond wind farm than I did. And that was what I based my video upon. At the time we were there, there was no contention about what the elevation was at this particular point. The interest was where Anthony shot his videos.
Yeah, and of course, at the time, there was no contention of the elevation
that
I
I
took
finish,
it at.
Please? Having shot the video, and we also videoed the Isle of Man after the light had almost disappeared from the horizon. We shot the Isle of Man this time as well. We then had to pack up and leave because it was late. Having got home and examined the footage of the wind turbines, I realized that they showed some really interesting things. And made a video about that as the first video because it was the most clear demonstration of things being obscured by the horizon that we managed to get on that day. And I discovered quite quickly that all the wind turbines matched up very, very nicely with the angles from our viewing point. Now, we hadn't done any particular thing to identify the elevation that we were at. And in my video, I make it clear in the description of how I estimate the height that it is an estimate of the height that we were at. It's based on the Ordnance Survey map information available. And what I've done is actually err on a low side rather than the high side in doing that. You can see that the 15-meter contour line runs just below the path at the top of that slope there, or the bank at the top of that slope. We have a tripod height to add to...
Sorry, bear with me a second, Miles. I just want to get clarity on that. You're giving some measurements now, finally. So where are you saying on this picture 15 metres?
You're interrupting me now.
Yeah, I want to know exactly about the heights. That's what we're asking about. So you're saying there's a contour line on the Ordnance Survey map at 15 metres that correlates to where on this picture, please?
On that picture, it's really difficult to be absolutely accurate.
You're stuttering again like a gibbering idiot. So just tell me where the Ordnance Survey map correlates with 15-metre measurement on this picture.
Shut up, you'd listen, you'd hear the answer. It correlates, it runs along just below the top of that slope. That's where the 15-metre contour line runs. Now, the 15-metre elevation is from an average sea level. And so all we can say is that from the bottom of that, or from the 5-metre contour line up to the 15-metre contour line, we have 10 meters. It's definitely 10 meters. You have to add a tripod height to that. You have to add a little bit because the 15-meter contour line is below the top of that bank. And you have to add a little bit more because the 5-meter contour line is above where the water level actually was. It's above the average high water mark as marked on the Ordnance Survey map. Putting all those things together, I said our camera height was going to be about 12.5 meters. It might be a bit more, it might be a bit less. And I explicitly say that we don't have by saying that we don't have a precise camera height. And so any interpretation of what we look at on the wind turbines must take into account the fact that the camera height could be as low as 10 meters, it could be as high as maybe even 15 meters, but it's somewhere, we know it's somewhere in that range. From the Ordnance Survey map, there's at least a 10-meter. Right, now I don't use all those words in the video, but that's the implication of what I'm saying. Now, if someone can prove that on that particular day, the tide height was so high that in fact we were only 8 meters above the water, well, fair enough. But I was there, I saw the tide. I know how high it got, and it did not.
But you can't
get,
prove it, and we can prove that it was 7.5
well,
meters.
I don't know if I can
sorry,
prove
Anthony,
it. I
you've
would
just,
have to go back through all my video
Miles, you
clips
just asked for if
to
someone
see
can
whether
prove
I have
otherwise.
a clip.
Miles, you just said if someone can prove otherwise. Can you see what's on screen right now?
Well, I don't know what's on your screen right now. What I have on screen right now is the picture of the bank with a cutout person on it. That is a completely inappropriate way of doing that particular thing. I've done something similar on the cliffs, but
Miles.
I just want to just get sorry, Anthony. I just want to get clarity that Miles has just said that based on his measurements, Miles has just said based on his measurements that he could be as low as 30 feet. As low as 30 feet, according to Miles. That's the lowest Miles thinks he can be at. Off the water. At high tide.
Just after high tide, yeah.
And we've got evidence that
30
shows
feet.
the tide height was 7.6.
30 feet isn't far off what I estimate you to be.
30 feet isn't far off what you estimate.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm cool with, I'm not making a precise claim about our elevation for
no, but you are
videos.
exaggerating it, Miles.
Not at all. I'm using the Ordnance Survey Map data. It's going by the Ordnance Survey Map information that the top of that is over 15 meters above average sea level. 15
so
meters
2 points
above
then,
average.
Miles.
Hang on, 15 meters above average sea level is nearly 50 feet. And I'm saying it was more like 40 feet. It could have been less, and I'm quite happy to accept that it could have been less.
Miles,
well, I think the actual facts were that you were less. And you
this
were.
All started with you saying I was lying. In what sense, at any point, have I lied?
You've lied about your 40 feet observer height.
Go back to the very beginning, Anthony, when second video, well, the last video, where he says that he was between mid-tide and high tide, and then he would divide the 15 meter and the 10 meter and do it at 12.5. So effectively, he was putting in between mid and high tide. When he was at high tide, that is a blatant
No, I wasn't putting
lie.
between mid and high tide. I was allowing for the little bit extra above the 15 meter contour line. I was allowing for the bit below the 5 meter contour line, and I was allowing for the tripod height.
Right, that clip again,
just one more time. You didn't show what the high tide was, and you estimated your elevation above water. What nonsense is that? I showed what my elevation was on Google Earth at 35, yet Jeremy's done a whole series on how dishonest I was, and you guess and don't show key evidence and claim that somehow that's acceptable. Are you on a different planet?
Yeah.
Are you on a different planet? Do different rules apply to you?
Not at all.
Right, so why is it acceptable in your world to be wishy-washy with your elevation above water, not show the tide height, yet for some reason, when I don't show nothing, I showed everything, and I applied the values on Google Earth, somehow I'm dishonest, but you're claiming to be reasonable.
Anthony, I'm not saying that to say
Miles,
Google
you're
Earth
lying.
Says, Anthony,
you lied
can I
about your observer height above water and did not produce the water evidence to support your claim. That's
Anthony,
dishonest.
Let me finish.
I think you said
I'm not saying it's dishonest to say Google Earth says that is 35 feet. What it is dishonest to do is to say, therefore, it is definitely 35 feet, because you know that Google Earth is not accurate for those elevations.
Nobody's said that. Nobody's ever said that it's definitely 35 feet because Google says so. We've said Google says it's 35 feet. Simple.
Well,
and
Google,
it wasn't wildly
Google
inaccurate
is
as claimed by
as
the
we
ballers.
showed yesterday by looking at what Google gives as elevations. You claim to have thrown a tape measure down or used a tape measure on that particular part of the cliff.
Correct.
And claimed that tape measure supported what Google Earth said.
No, I say it did not support the baller's assertion that it is wildly inaccurate to the tune of 30 meters.
No, it doesn't. But nobody claims it's 30 meters higher than 35 feet.
Everybody claims that, Miles. You're lying again.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
They do.
The claim
they absolutely do, Miles. You're lying again, Miles. Every single baller is claiming 30 meters at least.
Before we change subject,
Can I put that into perspective for you?
No, I think I'd like to hear what
Miles.
Ranty's got to say. Can
No,
we just
not
hear
lying
Ranty?
at all.
Yeah,
Ranty, go ahead.
Miles.
before we change subject, guys, before we change subject, Miles, do you agree that when you took the video, you was at high tide? Now,
I didn't take the video.
when the video was taken, it was at high tide.
It was after high tide, but probably pretty close to high tide.
5 centimeters difference on a 9 meter swell. You're going to say that's high tide.
Whatever. Yeah.
So it's high tide, yeah. And then can you just play the video again from yesterday, Anthony, where he says it's between high tide and mid tide?
Because that is the lie, true. Miles. The bit that you're swerving, that is the lie. What was the timestamp, Ranty? From what time? Hang on, let me get it. 15:30. We're on. Right, here we go. Listen to what he says, guys.
15 meter elevation to here. That's 15 meters above average sea level, but we know the tide was not out halfway. It was less than halfway out. It was between high tide and a halfway point.
It was between high tide and a halfway point. Is that true, Miles?
Yes, absolutely true.
Right, we'll carry on.
Miles.
This is what he does next.
No, Miles.
This tells us that
High
you're
tide.
lying.
Lies. Not true at all.
You're lying,
Absolutely
Miles.
true.
No, it isn't, Miles.
After high tide, therefore the level of the water must be between high tide and a lower point, mid tide.
So are you playing
your
words,
slack
man?
phraseology, Miles. You're indicating it's down here somewhere.
Of course you are.
You are misleading your audience, Miles. You are lying.
Absolutely accurate.
But then
You are lying, Miles.
The
You are
15 by the
lying.
10.
You are lying, Miles.
You are lying, Miles.
Nathan,
Carry on.
please kick this gentleman. He doesn't deserve his mic time.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Bye, Miles.
You're going to kick me.
No, don't.
I would kick you.
Because you thought you'd caught me in a lie, and
No,
you
We haven't caught you in a
had
lie.
to face the fact
Between
you
high
had
and
caught
mid
me.
tide, you said. You weren't. You were at
Should we
high
do it
tide.
again? Should we do it again? Because
just
Miles
said he
doesn't
was at
think
high
that we've
tide.
caught him. Let's do it again from 30 seconds.
play
Let's
it
see what he
again.
says. You ready, guys? Listen.
10, 15 meter elevation to here. That's 15 meters above average sea level, but we know the tide was not out halfway. It was less than halfway out. It was between high tide and a halfway point.
It was between high tide and a halfway point.
We are
Miles,
somewhere
it was
between
5 centimeters off high tide.
meters and 15 meters. I split the difference.
It was 5 centimeters off high tide, Miles. The highest tide of the week.
Yep, I'm fine. How you doing, guys?
Hi, Ali.
Only if you assume, and even if it was 5 centimeters off high tide, that places it between high tide and mid tide.
Why
Well,
does
it
that
would,
give Miles
Miles.
right
Sorry,
to
just
not-
to interrupt you, Miles. It would if it wasn't the highest tide of the week.
And
Well, it
even
doesn't matter.
if you give him
It
that
doesn't matter
credit,
whether it was the
Nathan,
highest tide
the
of the
way
week
he's
or
worded
not.
it makes it sound like
was
it's
the
down here
tide
somewhere, and
on
that's
the day
totally
that
dishonest.
matters.
What you should have
The tide
said
on
was,
the day
it's just gone beyond high
It was
tide.
just past
That's
high
it.
tide, and I make the only reason that I put in
It's to change your elevation height, you dishonest piece of shit.
No,
Sorry.
it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
you
it is.
have changed
That is
it.
the only
You've made it
reason
higher.
you do that.
You can look
You're a
back
liar,
at
Miles.
that wind turbine data, you can look back at that and you can view it from 30 feet if you want. You can put in a 30-foot elevation if you want. I have no issue with that at all.
You're the one who's
The
presented this
wind turbine
information
data
with a much
stands
higher
up
elevation than that. That's because you're a
regardless
liar
of
and you've misrepresented what you've
precision
actually
of
captured.
estimating
You haven't
the
captured the data
elevation.
that would catch you
And
out.
there
You're
is
not
no
prepared to
attempt
present it.
to lie.
You've been caught
I have
out.
been
It's been pointed out that
entirely
you're
honest.
not between high and mid tide. You're at high tide.
The highest
No,
tide of the
I mean,
week.
and Nathan, we filmed
We,
there. for
you're a
nearly
stuttering
2
moron and a
hours.
liar.
You filmed for 2 hours. Did you get the water? Did you get the high tide on the water? Did you get
Not
that
once.
for us? Or did you not? Or are you not going to
I
produce
don't,
it?
as I've answered that, I am not sure whether we have a shot panning down to where high tide was.
What kind of
It
research are
certainly
you
wasn't
2
like
hours of
that,
filming,
which
he
is
can't
a
actually
high
film the
spring
water.
tide.
He can only do that when he gets home and he looks at an ordnance survey map. Can't film the water within 2 hours of filming. You having me on?
Miles, this is high tide.
We were filming.
We
the sunset.
were stuttering like idiots because we've been caught out lying.
Nathan, You are
stuttering like a stuttering liar.
Attack again, Nathan.
Yeah, that's because you're a stuttering liar. Stuttering like a liar.
Support your assertion.
You guys,
you were not
you guys
40 feet, Miles.
This is going to make you guys look so bad when you play when people play this back.
No, you're the one stuttering because you've been calling a lie. You're stuttering, Rumpus, like Rumpus.
You are no higher than 29 feet, Miles. Admit it.
Well, my estimate is 40 feet. Right. I have no doubt and no problem.
It's fundamentally dishonest, Miles. You're lying.
It was really
nowhere near 40 feet. Just a liar. Nowhere near 40 feet.
This is high tide, Miles.
I don't care.
See that's high tide covering the bit you were standing on completely.
Yeah, that's an exceptionally high tide.
Oh, right. So we have these standards, do we? Do we have a standard called exceptionally high tide, or do we just have high tide, as I asked you yesterday? Do we have a figure called exceptionally high tide, Miles?
There are tides.
And furthermore, is this video called exceptionally high tide, according to Miles?
Hold on. I want to get an answer from Miles. Do we have a value defined as exceptionally high tide, yes or no?
Pardon?
Do we have a value that you can go to in evidence now that is titled exceptionally high tide?
It's a description.
Just stutter away, you moron.
And now
I'm going to conclude this by saying that if this was high tide at the time that you did it, or 5 centimeters below,
I abuse liars, dishonest liars like you. That's who I'm abusive to. Dishonest liars who stutter when they're put in a corner.
I'm not in a corner, and I'm not.
Yeah, you are. You've been caught out in a lie. You are in a corner. That's exactly where you are. You're in a corner with us beating on you because you've lied through your back teeth about your elevation. This elevation on screen now that you claim is 40 feet at high tide. Total and utter nonsense.
And your evidence to support your claim that it is not 40 feet
is on screen right now.
So you're able to extrapolate from a picture, take an angle below the bank. You're able to calculate the height from that.
I measured it, Miles.
That's pretty
we've measured it. Do you not understand that, Miles? We've also confirmed it with a tape measure. Now we're using your evidence so that you can't pick apart ours.
And your confirmation with a tape measure, if someone can show me that, then
no, we don't need to. We can show you on screen using your measurements, and it is blatantly. Here we go. You're asking us to show us our evidence. We're using your evidence. Your evidence shows that you are unequivocally not at 40 feet.
The most you can be, Miles, is 29.
That's not what the Ordnance Survey map says. Okay.
Who cares? You were there.
So either the Ordnance Survey map is wrong, and if you can show the Ordnance Survey map is wrong, that's fine. Or
we are doing, Miles.
Do that with
that's precisely what we're doing. Yeah, I was about to say, you took words out of my mouth. That's pretty much what we're doing, Miles. That's pretty much exactly what we're doing right now.
With me, I have no issue with it. Okay.
Yeah, but we have an issue.
You have no issue with you lying and misrepresenting your facts. We know that you're cool with lying, Miles. We know you're cool with it. We already know you're cool with lying. Thanks for confirming that you're perfectly happy to lie to us and your audience. We know you're cool with it. We know you're a disingenuous liar. We all know that's why we're beating on you right now. You can accuse me of being abusive, but the bottom line here, Miles, is that you're a liar. That's the bottom line. There we go.
No. Right, listen, I'd like to change track a little bit. Miles, could you tell me how you got to the...
Ranty, can I just say one thing before we do change track?
Okay.
This personal abuse that you guys are directing at me.
Not personal abuse. We've pointed out that you've lied. It's not personal abuse.
Nathan,
you've presented inaccurate facts, and we've pointed that out. That's not personal abuse.
So, have you seen the title of this debate?
Someone a moron is not personal abuse.
Miles Davis, the title of this debate is Flat Earth Debate 138 Live. The title of the video that you produced yesterday is Anthony Riley lying again.
No, that's not the title of my video.
What's it called?
The title of my video is Anthony Riley lying again? ?
Oh, with the question mark. Right, I forgot about that. However, you then go into great detail about how he could be lying, and is he lying? Lying. We're not doing that here. We haven't titled it, Is Miles Davis lying? It's Flat Earth Debate 138. Nobody's going to search this. Only the people in this chat are going to hear how we've called you out. Everything in the video that you've done is now pointed not just at Anthony, but you've done it to me in the past, and you've called me a liar in the past.
No, I didn't.
Sorry, I've got a clip on the Christmas special, Miles, of you saying specifically the words "you are a liar," Ranty. Hi, Freeball. How you doing? Can you hear us? Hello, Fireball. Can you hear us?
He's going to snipe people. I hope someone got rid of him.
Yeah,
so, just for the record, Miles, are you saying that you've never called Ranty a liar?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
sure that's what you just said.
No, it isn't what I said.
Mistakes.
I said that the video.
You called me a liar. He knows this.
I came on to this debate channel and I did use that word. Now I've apologized for using that word. That's fine. Okay, that was.
Why do you keep saying things are fine? You've smeared a man, and now you're saying that's fine. Like it's somehow okay for you to do these things. Why do you think it's fine to lie about your height and smear another person, Miles? Why do you say that's fine? It absolutely isn't fine.
Nathan, can I just ask you to...
If somebody, what's important, Nathan, is that debate when I said that I thought Ranty was lying.
That's not what you said. You said you are a liar, Ranty, about 5 times in a row. You didn't say I think you might be lying. You said unequivocally you are a liar, Ranty, about 5 times.
Yes, I said it several times, and had the debate continued and
hello,
had
Johnson.
Ranty
Can you say hello?
tried to explain why he wasn't lying, then things would have been different. What actually happened immediately after that debate was I went away and researched in more detail because I thought Ranty's
stuttering like an idiot again. Why are you stuttering? What's with this stutter?
Nathan, if you are going to attack people,
call you on your
lies. Yeah, I am. That's exactly what I'm going to do, over and over again, Miles.
Nathan, why won't you let me speak? Why every time I'm trying to get a sentence out, you interrupt?
Bring a bit of decorum to the chat, if we could, please. You know the steps at the side of the shop that you were talking about. How did you manage to use them to measure your height near the water's edge? Would you be able to show us again how you did
height
that?
Near the water's edge? I'm not sure where you mean.
Well, you know where you did your observation from. You say in your video that in order to get the elevation height there, you walked 100 meters away, climbed some steps, counted the steps, added them up, and then you got an elevation height through that. Is that correct?
It was no. What we did was, or what I did was, to get a feeling for the heights, because I hadn't gone there to measure the heights of the cliffs. I'd gone there on that first occasion. The objective was, firstly, I think the location offers some, it's a nice place to go. It offers some useful evidence for earth curvature or flatness, whatever it happens to be, because of the location of the Isle of Man, the fact that there are lighthouses, wind turbines, and so on, right? So that's why we were there. I wasn't there to measure the height of the cliff.
No, you were there to exaggerate your height.
So why did you bring it up?
Can I finish? Can I just finish? I'm going to explain. So while I was there, I noticed the steps, and I thought, okay, well, up to that grassy area, which is much lower than the area from which the wind turbines were filmed, it's much lower than the cliffs. But that looks like it's quite high above the beach. And simply counting the number of steps to get up to the floor of the tea house, you have to go up 50 steps, or 51 steps, and the steps do not start at where average sea level is. So your height above average sea level up to the floor of the level of the tea house is greater than 25 feet. The steps we could measure easily as having a rise of 6 inches, and Al did that. Actually, the metal steps.
How did you measure
the metal steps at the bottom have one of them is less than 6 inches, but yeah, it's 25 feet up to the floor of the tea house. The tea house floor lies well below that level that I was at, and there's a quite a steep slope, which is the slope itself. The top of the slope is much higher than I am, so that adds at least another 6 foot to the height, and probably more like 10 feet to the height. So you're going from 25 feet to between 30 and 35 feet. You add on another 4 feet for the tripod, and we still haven't accounted for the difference between the bottom of the steps and the water height. So, the whole thing seems to fit very nicely with what the Ordnance Survey map claims, which is that point is over 50 meters above average sea level.
Just say that last line again.
50 meters being 50 feet.
Just say that last line again. The whole thing seems to fit. What was that, Miles?
With what the Ordnance Survey maps show. And so if everything fits with what the Ordnance Survey maps show, it's not unreasonable to then use the Ordnance Survey map when you're trying to get an estimate for the elevation that you're actually at.
Can you say hello, Dunning-Kruger?
There's no attempt to lie or deceive here. I'm open about the fact that what I'm doing on that video is trying to gain an estimate using the best available evidence, the Ordnance Survey map. I'm trying to gain an estimate for how high we were above
Miles, that
the level of the water.
Evidence, Miles. All you had to do was run a tape down, do a bit of basic trig, and it would give you an accurate.
If I'd had a tape with me and I'd realized how good that wind turbine footage was at the time, I might have been able to do that. But didn't have a tape with me, and I didn't realize how good that wind turbine footage was until I got back home and was.
So basically, what you're saying is you took a guess at your elevation, you didn't document the height of the tide, and you've gone with very favourable figures that support your assertion that we live on a sphere.
Not at all, because I'm quite happy if to say that we could have been at 25 feet. That wind turbine footage still stands up, whether we were at 25 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet, or anything else.
Could I just share
that wind turbine footage still stands up, because the nearer wind turbines are much taller than the further away.
You're wrong. You're lying again. If you're lower in elevation, it goes totally against the curve calculations in your model.
Doesn't.
Yes, it does, Miles.
Well,
do you know how far those turbines are?
Not off the top of my head, I can't remember, about 30 miles, but I can't remember.
Let's do it live. Let's actually do it live and figure out. Let's do it. Let's do the curve calcs right now.
Can I get clarity on my original question, please? Could I share my screen for a moment?
You are.
Okay. So, Miles, you took the video here, yes?
That's where LK was located. I was located
further along. So, in order to get...
Hold on 1 second, guys. Hi, No. Can you hear us? Say hello, No.
Sorry, I kicked him, Nate, because I was scared that I've not seen that name before, and I didn't want everyone to get sniped, so I kicked him.
Well, listen. So, in order to get the height...
Kicking people is ridiculous.
In order to get the height here...
I want to get sniped, so I kicked him.
Hi, Bob. Can you hear us? Can you say hello, Bob? Straight onto mute. Sorry, Ranty, you go ahead. You ask your question again, please.
Okay, so Miles, in order to get the height here, you decided to measure 51 steps. Is that correct? From down here, would it have been?
There are 47 steps from the beach to the top of the concrete steps there.
So
there is then a gentle slope up to the tea house.
How did you measure the gentle slope?
I didn't measure the gentle slope. I simply noticed it was a gentle upward slope.
So
there are then 4 more steps up to the floor of the tea house.
And then you come round the back of it here, don't you? And then you come round.
Well, you can walk round the front of. You can walk round the tea house, close to the tea house, in front of those cars. And then there's a ramp that goes up to the flat area there, and the flat area appears to be pretty level. Again, it might be slightly not level.
Why do you keep kicking me?
So this is how you got your elevation height, yeah?
You won't this time. You said hello, Dawn Dreader.
What I had done that on the day. I had actually walked up those steps, counting them as I went, and
you measured the step heights and you
in
added
the
them all
area.
up.
Al and I stood there, and he had his laser measuring device with him that day, but we didn't use it very much. We should have. He tried to use it a bit, but we didn't use it a great deal. But he used it on the steps, because I just stuck my hand down on the step to try to get a feeling for how high they were, because I didn't want to, sort of.
Wouldn't it have been easier?
And he confirmed it as 6 inches with the laser device.
Wouldn't it have just been easier to throw a tape down there?
Yeah, but I didn't have a tape with me. If I'd had a tape with me, I might have thrown the tape down there. But I'd needed to accurately measure the angle from the bottom in order to do the trick. So,
so
he took a laser.
Why did he bring a 15-foot pole with him?
He brought that with him. That was his decision to bring that. He didn't bring a tape measure. He brought that pole, and that's fine. It was up to him.
Why did you reject this measuring method as accurate and gone with your one that was based on Ordnance Survey when you've got a known measurement in front of you?
Sorry, why did I?
Why did you reject his 15-foot pole when you know the height of the pole?
I didn't reject his 15-foot pole.
Well, you did. You went on to Ordnance Survey calculations instead.
Okay, let me tell you. I got from him the video footage that he had taken of the wind turbines. I did not have any of the video footage or other information that he had gathered with.
I just.
Oh, right, so Dawn Treader, we let you come in, and now you've kicked everybody. Ah, wonderful.
I think I survived it.
Yeah, see how long that lasts. Well, as I've got a single guest
Want
in the
me to
hangout.
drop out and join again, then, Nathan?
Yeah, bear with me a sec.
I just okay. I'll just
hang around for a minute, Ali. Yeah, clearly Dawn Treader wasn't very happy and decided to kick the entire hangout, mate.
Open a new one.
I will. I'll start a brand new hangout, so I'll just end this one and start a new one.
I'll just pop out then.
Yeah, if you pop out, I'll send a new link out.
Okay.
No problems. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, so I have got a new hangout started and I've posted the link. Why would you boot everyone, Dawn? We kicked you because you didn't say hello, and then when you did say hello, I said no one's going to kick you, and you kicked the entire hangout. I mean, admittedly, it's only a couple of minutes' work for me, but still very frustrating. After we said no problem, you've said hello now, so we're not going to kick you out. But it was me kicking you out because we couldn't hear anything from you. Anyway. We'll have a few guests in shortly. Oh, great. There's an issue with this hangout. Maybe another one is in order. Another couple of minutes, I'm afraid, folks.
All right, Nathan.
Yeah, I'm good. I think we might have to resume on Skype for some reason. Whoever kicked him presumably blocked him, and on this particular call, even if I start a new one, I don't think we can get Anthony back in, so it might be the case that we just have to continue on Skype.
I think, can I not send an invite to him getting back in from the back chat? I think
yeah, try and do that if you could. That would be really good.
Right, hang on. I need to get his... oh, God.
I need his...
So he's going to just... Ali's going to send you an invite from the Hangout itself, because for some reason, even though I've started a new Hangout, it won't let you in.
Yeah, I don't know. It never lets me back in for some reason. I don't know why.
Weird.
Isn't it funny that when we ease off on the sniping of the people that come in that we don't recognise, the minute I back off, boosh.
Well, it's Dawn Treader. So I kicked him out several times on account of the fact that he didn't say hello when he joined. Now, that's partially the guests who are on the panel's fault, but it's not their concern. It's obviously my concern. But if Miles is mid-sentence, he's not going to stop because we've got a new guest. He wants to get his point out, which is perfectly acceptable and understandable. But by the same token, I don't want to lose Miles. I don't want to lose you. So if somebody joins and somebody's mid-sentence and they don't stop talking long enough for that person to be heard, I'm going to kick them because we get sniped, like we've just seen. So it might be frustrating for the audience, but by the same token, I want the show to continue without prolonged periods of silence where I'm having to start new Hangouts and start up Skype calls. So, Dawn, there was no need. You just have to say hello when you join. You don't have to get in and then think that I've not sniped you and suddenly that's your opportunity to snipe the entire Hangout. Just join and say hello, and then hopefully you'll join in the conversation next time. But if you join and don't say hello, I'll kick you.
Well, he said I did say hello many times. I got kicked straight away 3 times.
Yeah, it's because you're saying that's not your fault, Dawn, and I appreciate that, and I am sympathetic because I'm kicking you because other people are still talking when I'm saying, can you say hello, can you say hello? So it might be that you've said hello and it just didn't come through, or I couldn't hear you because people were talking. That's my fault. I'll take the blame for that. But, please don't, when you finally do get to join and say, no problem, I've heard you this time, Dawn, don't remove the entire Hangout. That just makes you an arsehole.
And it also means that next time I see your name in chat, I'm not likely to give you any benefit of the doubt, because the minute you pop in, you're likely to just get sniped immediately because we know that you sniped the chat. And given that, just to address Paul, the liar, what's his name, Voight, Miles was in for, an hour whilst we were lambasting him. So if it was really was the case that in some way we would snipe people that make our lies or whatever, then why would we keep Miles in? He was the one attacking us or defending himself on this occasion. We didn't kick Miles. We kept Miles in as long as possible.
Yeah, Dawn Treader kicked Miles.
So, Nathan, do you want to address this? Nathan Oakley, it is you who developed this environment of people sniping all the time. I don't think that's true, Paul.
No.
We all know where the sniping originated from. Don't you understand?
I have no control over the sniping. None.
I've sent you a message. Sorry, guys. I've sent you a message there, Anthony. I've tried it anyway. I've sent you an invite from the chat box. Maybe you can try that. It's in your email address.
Which email address?
The
Hotmail.
Shall I say the Hotmail one? The Hotmail.
Okay.
The philanthropy.
Yeah, man, that's fine. I shall have a look.
Right, try that out. See if that works. You might still be blocked. I don't know. But anyway, sorry, guys.
Okay. I don't even see the email in my inbox, to be honest.
Maybe try your Google Hangouts or something like that.
Oh, right, the Google. Right, okay, let's try that.
Maybe try that, I don't know.
So did we get to the conclusion, or was there a consensus met that Miles exaggerated his elevation to 40 feet when it was no higher than 29 feet and rejected the measured distance of 15 feet or 16 feet from the pole that Al K had in favour of the Ordnance Survey map, which he knows is contradicting what is the measured height? Oi! Stop it.
That pole was 15 feet, because I didn't know how high that pole was.
I heard he either said 15 or 16 feet, and that was what I was asking. Why did you reject the known measurement height of the pole in favour of the Ordnance Survey map, which you knew was significantly different? Because it's more accurate, but you have a measured distance of a pole at 16 feet, and it goes most of the way up that hole, that drop. So you only need 2 of them, and that you're only at 30 feet, and that was more than ample height. But for some reason, Miles took it in his stride to argue the favourable Ordnance Survey map elevation in favour of the known measurement height that he's got in front of him.
Yeah, I'm glad I now know the figure of that pole, because obviously you can extrapolate as much as you like based on a 6-foot guy, but if you know the pole's 16 feet high, then, you know, that's completely game over.
Yeah. What he's done, Miles has been sneaky because he's known that the pole is, if he takes the shot from that position, it makes the pole look a lot higher. So he's had to go from the top and show, perspectively speaking, why the pole is not as high as it looks to support his assertion that the Ordnance Survey map would be the correct one to use. But that still rejects the 16-foot pole that Al-K is holding as a known height. That is a known height, and it would be perfect for what he's doing. To give you an idea, 16-foot pole that Al-K is holding as a known height. That is a known height, and it would be...
Yeah, see, this time, whoever that was, you didn't mute your watch page, so I've got to kick you.
What was the name?
Can't remember. FE Cult or something. Probably had enough time to remove Ali. We'll see.
I'm Cat Earth in. Cat Earth is saying in chat that I don't think he wants me there. I'm not sure who he's referring to, but Cat Earth, I'd like to see you in. I've got a bone to pick with you. Gobshite.
Oh, well. You got hammered the other night over religion. They were eating their own the other night there, so they were feeding on their own, their own kind. So it was quite funny to listen to.
Nah, you're boring me, Riley from Cat Earth. Yeah, that's because you're a coward, Cat. You don't want to come on because you know that I've seen a lot of your comments where you're laughing at people like me, Nathan, Ranty, and you just don't want to walk into a nest of vipers because that's what it'll be if you come on Cat Earth. A nest of vipers. Why? Because you're a moron. You can't see the wood for the trees.
Does he understand that the lighthouse isn't there yet? Has he got that? It's
No.
been a good 2 months.
And he still thinks there's a
saying
beach
that
underneath
I'm a
it.
hologram fantasist when it's actually the lighthouse not being there on his model. That he still probably doesn't get, doesn't understand, can't comprehend. Too stupid.
Cat Earth, go on to Discord where you can't snipe me. Well, the debate show's here and now, Cat. You only click a one link and you'll be in, and nobody will snipe you because we want to hear you in exactly the same way that we wanted to hear Miles.
Yeah, I'd love to have Cat Earth in. See if he finally accepts that the lighthouse isn't there.
Oh, that there's no beach for us to not see.
Yep. It's normally about this sort of time that the debate would come full circle and we'd have things argued about again. So I noticed Imric was talking about the missing amount below the lighthouse. Again, like right at the beginning of the debate. Bit like Cat Earth.
Not realising that none of the lighthouse should be seen.
Yeah,
That's a bit of an issue. I remind myself of the moment where Jeremy presented when he found what he believed was a lighthouse. He described a tall, cylindrical-looking tower thing on a coast. What might that be? He says. And obviously we all said lighthouse. And he was quite happy to tell us, in fact, yes, it was in fact a lighthouse. And as we start looking into it, I said to him, yeah, I've got a sneaky suspicion that would already be behind the curvature of the Earth. And obviously, Jeremy's point on that occasion was, how much are we seeing underneath the lighthouse? And I'd already said that the whole lighthouse should be behind the curve, and that was just my gut reaction at the time, rather than, I mean, it wasn't based on maths or out, it was just, that looks very close to the water, I wonder if it's behind. And obviously it turned out that it was gone. Yet Jeremy wanted to know how much of the land underneath the lighthouse should we be looking at, which coincidentally is what Rick wants to talk about now. So obviously we're looking at this and thinking, so Rick and Alex don't get it. You shouldn't see that lighthouse. Miles Davis does observations, puts in 40 feet when the highest possibly could be is 29 feet. Miles tells lies, can't defend himself, tries to do it based on an Ordnance Survey map that sounds credible on face value, but when you've got Alk here stood there with a pole measuring 16 feet and it goes most of the way up the ramp, you can't get away with calling it 30 meters miles. 30 feet, sorry, I misspoke, 30 feet.
The guys watching have been claiming that they're going to shut this show down, put it all to an end, probably for about 30 or 40 shows. And they're all still watching in the chat going, this is dying a death. Well, no, guys, this isn't dying a death. This is just today's show. There'll be another one tomorrow and the day after. It makes no difference what you think. However, we are pretty much taking you all apart using your own evidence, proving the Earth is not a sphere and proving that the Earth is in fact flat. You guys keep tuning in. Be sure to share and subscribe.
And spread the good word.
I've got a question. I've got a question. Obviously, that link never worked, Anthony. I don't know what happened. Now I can't even get back into sending another link. So, but I was going to ask tomorrow night, guys. Are you on the GDC tomorrow night?
The what? Sorry.
You know the great debate community. Are you going on there? Is it tomorrow night? You're meant to be going on.
I believe so. Yeah.
What time is it?
Cool with it. I think we've all agreed to do it now. We were all, Ranty's better, I'm better. I've arranged it with Chris. Everyone's happy. So yeah, as far as I know, we're all on Steve's show tomorrow.
What time is it?
I think it's about 10 o'clock our time.
So that'll be 11 o'clock mine.
Yeah, I think so.
Right, okay. Well. Right, sorry, I've got a late start on Monday, so that should be quite interesting. You're all looking forward to it, yeah?
Al-K states that 40 feet is right. Your measurements are wrong. Al, I don't think you understand the difference between measurements over calculations. Measurements are more accurate than calculations. Calculations, especially when Miles does them, are wrong. Miles, Al, you both lied. Your elevation was not 40 feet. At all.
I'm standing by the high water mark, literally on it. Right, and in a position where we've literally on this show shown footage of that particular part being absolutely covered in water and water splashing up on the observation position. We've shown that in this clip, in this video. He's also standing next to that position at the high tide mark, according to him, with a 16-foot pole.
Do you want to present my screen for a second, Nathan? Let me know when I'm sharing.
Yep, you're presenting now.
Okay, essentially when we were there, myself and Anthony, we did two ways of measuring different parts on the hill. In this case, this is the part where Miles Davis was, and this was the part of the cliff that we couldn't physically climb at that point because it was eroded away. And so what we had was a 6-foot pole, and we had, I believe it was a 12-foot pole. So we put the 6-foot pole down onto the base, and then we ran the pole across onto the hill at a 90-degree, and we worked our way up the hill. And when we got to the top, we knew it was 3 times the 6 feet plus one pole that wasn't quite to the top. It was about 1 foot off. So by my estimations, that would have been 23 feet from the concrete slab down at the bottom to the top of the base. We backed that up because we then threw a tape measure down the hill, threw it down the hill like so, and he went down to the bottom and he pulled it taut. I pulled it taut at the top. We took a trigonometry measurement to get the angle. We took the measurement on the tape measure, which gave us the tools that we needed to then put it into a trigonometry calculator, which gave us the exact same height. So we now know we had 2 ways of measuring that particular part from the grid to the top of the hill, and both came out at 23 feet. 100%. And we have it on video.
So, and he's done the same. He's taken a 16-foot pole. Admittedly, he's climbed up to a slightly on a concrete block that's maybe a foot or two high, and then he's measured to the top of the hill with a 16-foot pole.
Yeah, but he's dismissed that and he's gone with the Ordnance Survey map lines instead, because the lines give him a more favourable height. So he's dismissed the known measured pole at 16 or 15 feet, and he's gone with the Ordnance Survey. Tilly.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously looking for the highest elevation that he can get, and whichever gives him that, he'll sell his soul to it. Basically, that's how it works. But the simple facts are, we have a physical measurement where we incrementally climbed the actual hill to give us a height of 23 feet, and then we have a trigonometry one with a tape measure and the theodolite. And we was able to get an exact match, 23 feet.
Just while we're on this subject then, because you said earlier, and I want to test whether or not you're right, that based on him dropping the elevation from 40 feet to, say, 25 feet, that would change his observation conclusion. Is that still...
Yes.
Would you still stand by that? And if you would, can you show us? Show us on the
even
maths?
if it only... Yeah, I mean, even if it only changes it 70 feet or 80 feet, then that means that his entire video is bollocks, basically.
Well, can you just show us with the maths what you mean?
Okay.
Let me know when you want
just
to
get one of the turbines. I think it was it 18 miles away?
No, it was much further than that.
Can't remember which turbines he was looking at.
No, it was way, way further than that.
So he wasn't looking at the Isle of Man ones, he was looking at
he was looking at the furthest ones that you could see. I forget how far they were now. They were maybe 35 or 40 miles away. They were a long way away anyway. I'm just going to bring up the curvature calcs now. I wish I knew the exact distance. I'm going to say, just for instance, 35 miles. I can't remember off the top of my head.
What I'll do, mate, I'll go into his video and I'll see what value he gave to them, and then you can just use that.
Okay. In any event, he was putting 40 feet, which is, and then he was using this refracted hidden of 405 feet, so it must have been less than that. It must have been, let's say, 29 miles then. That seems more accurate. Yeah, it's probably 29 miles. 243 feet, and then he did his entire hour-long video about how this was consistent with Google Earth. When we drop his elevation down to 25, so 243, 25, we're looking at an extra 45 feet of difference here. And on the drop, 560 down, well, still the same, isn't it? 560. But you now need to account for another 40 feet of missing. Now, considering that's about 12% of the turbine height, that's a massive difference. Especially when we've been micromanaged over the height of the lighthouse, Moorgold lighthouse, to the pixel.
Ranty,
he's allowed to talk about not 12% off. Yeah.
Ranty, listen. Distance in miles. He's used 48 kilometers, which is 29.8 miles.
Oh, I thought, yeah, that's about right then. 28.8.
29.8. That's it. So just show the difference of 10 feet.
So at 25 feet, it would have been 307 refracted. At 40, 262.
Now, what's the difference between the two values on the refracted hidden? 262 against what?
38, 47 thing.
And when you listen to Miles's conclusion in his video, he uses words like in this horrible tone that he uses. It's perfectly what you would expect on a spheroid Earth. And
yeah, but even then,
you've lied about your height.
Yeah, even then, it didn't actually match. He was already using refraction, and then he was also saying that it falls within the boundaries of standard refraction because it still wasn't matching.
Well, without
it wasn't matching his observations.
Just try it at 18 feet. That pole was 16 feet, and according to him, the sea was slightly lower by a couple of feet. Well, if his pole was measuring to the top and it's 16 feet, that's 18 feet. So let's just see what 18 brings it out. There we have already.
330. Yeah, I mean, from the grid to the top was 23, probably a 3 feet. He says it was he used 2 meters for the height of the tripod. Okay, so the tripod is going to be higher than both of the height that they are. I mean, that's ridiculous. I'm going to put it down to about 3 feet, which is probably the normal height. So that's 23, 26. And then there's probably a 3 feet drop down to the watermark that we can see beneath the grid. I've always put him about 29 feet.
29 feet is the maximum he can be at. It depends on how high the actual high tide was.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
That's
exactly what I'm saying. It depends on the high tide mark, which he can't prove, has no footage of, apparently didn't manage to capture in 2.5 hours of filming.
Yeah, but the simple facts are, when you've got somebody calling you a liar, Anthony, you personally a liar, right? In a video, titling it, "Is Anthony Riley lying again?" Right? And then in his video, deliberately lying, saying that it's between halfway and full tide, and then he knocks between 15 and 10 meters and says, let's call it 12.5 meters then, because that's where the tide was, when that was bullshit, because it was at high tide. And he knows this. He deliberately lied in that to increase his elevation, to match
Not
it.
just high tide, the highest tide of the week.
The highest tide of the week, yeah, as well as 5 centimeters below the highest tide of the week. And then he decided to knock off 2.5 meters because he said it was somewhere between high tide and mid tide.
He's a Yahoo. That's exactly what he is. Basically, what he's done is he's looked at the Ordnance Survey map and thought, oh, that's favourably high. Let's go and maximise it. So he's made a journey out of it, and he's made a video out of it, trying to claim that Ordnance Survey is credible. Now, our position is we don't know what's credible, but what we do know is that if you measure stuff, generally, that will be credible. And we measured it, and I'm pretty certain it was 19 feet down to the bottom of that cliff, down to the bottom of that hill. And then the added bit, taking it to 23, was the bit down to the pebbles. Might be wrong. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong. But in any event, we knew that it was the highest possible it could be was 29. And that depends. And it would get worse than that, depending on how high the high tide was, which he conveniently doesn't seem to have access to, which, again, we call nonsense.
Yeah. We also know the height here, don't we, Anthony?
Yes.
We also know categorically
35 feet
there
doesn't seem to be unreasonable in our view.
We also know the height here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we move on from this subject? We've torn miles.
How long's left, Nath?
Let's have a look. I think about half an hour, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to step out because I've got to go and be somewhere for past before they shut. So Saturday morning time they shut, like, because the weather's rubbish. So then they're going home early. But Miles Davis claims Riley thinks he can measure better than an Ordnance Surveyors. No, Miles, we see the same disparity on the Ordnance Survey map that you guys see, and when you compare it to Google Earth, we realise that there is a discrepancy. We don't know why. We're not surveyors. We don't know why. But what we can do is operate a tape measure. And if we measure the hypotenuse and get it to a known value, that value cannot change. Now, you can argue over the exact measurements of the angles, and you can argue over how the trig was performed. And that's why Nathan said don't present any evidence, because all they'll do is attack it. And I agree. That's all that would happen. You lot would attack the calculation of the trig. So all we did was we used the measurement of the hypotenuse and basically calculated it ourselves and said, no, we don't accept the assertion that it's 30 meters plus or minus in this instance. And even if it was, why would you apply 30 meters in your favor? We could equally apply 30 meters in our favor and go 20 meters below the surface of the earth and claim that that's the same as what you're doing. So you guys are all dishonest. You're fundamentally dishonest. So on that note,
pick up on something that. Are you leaving now?
Yeah, go on.
Okay.
I'll listen to your next point.
No, it was just Paul Boyd, who basically, I think he just put. Let me just find it. Where he's just scroll up a second. He said something about that 35 feet that you said. He basically doesn't believe you.
Doesn't have to believe Anthony. That value is stated on Google, the model that is being tested.
Miles claims that he's measured it. You haven't really measured it, Miles. You've extrapolated it from calculated estimates. That's not measuring it. Measuring it is getting a tape measure out and measuring it.
Oh, there we go.
What we did.
Sleeping Warrior, 35 feet doesn't seem to be unreasonable in speech brackets. More lies from Riley, apparently. Lies in capital letters. Well, I think you'll be eating some words there, Paul.
Well, Miles has produced evidence to support that the Ordnance Survey map is the correct value, and by using Al Kay's own video and own footage, we've shown that it's not. Now, it's not our fault that it's not, but we can show that if you measure stuff with a tape measure, the fact that it's different to what they say isn't down to us. But we can tell the difference in the elevation difference between the 2 points is a fixed value, and we know that it's not crazy. So you guys can think what you want. We don't really care. The fact is, oh yes, I have measured it. Want to bet? Let's be clear, Miles. What is it that you say that you've measured? Because if you've measured it, Miles, you would have an accurate figure. And if your figures are anything like what you presented in the show today,
how could he measure it? He's just said he didn't have a tape measure.
Well,
what a load of crap.
I think he's using the word measure in the context of
he walked up some steps 300 meters away, walked up some steps, counted them 6 inches by 6 inches, then walked up a slope, which he guessed how much of a slope it was, and then he walked another 100 meters round some rocks and said, right, I think I've got the height of this. Utter bollocks.
Miles Davis reckons he's measured the cliff height. Which cliff height, Miles?
Anthony, can you hear me?
Yeah, man.
Right. Sorry, just before you go, can you test out, try and join that link again? I've put you in, it's come up. See if you can join that link or go to your Google, your Gmail or your Hotmail or whatever, wherever you go.
Oh, it might be in Gmail.
Before you go, just to try it out.
Definitely, thanks, Ali. It's worth testing if that method does work.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, because I've added you to it now. And you've come up as added. So
while those guys are doing that, I'll do a quick link as we have approximately 20 minutes left on this live stream. If you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and a link in the info box once the video is rendered. If you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. Please do not swear. If you do, I'll eject you, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin until the next stream where you'll be warmly welcome back. Please share the show, as sharing the show increases the chances of a more diverse panel. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. As I say, there is about 20 minutes left on this live stream.
Ali, I've got the email and it says, Ali B invited you to a group conversation, view conversation. So when I click that, it takes me to the Google Hangouts page, but there's no link, there's no conversation there. It appears that it may not work.
Oh well, worth a try.
Right, we'll figure it out then. We'll sort that out. We'll tell me that.
All right. Yeah. So Paul,
worth a try. So in a wee look at, we'll find out. You must be able to join somehow. There must be a way to do it. No, all right.
So Paul says, Ranty Riley, the real issue here is what is the actual elevation of where you took the second video? No, Paul. Why would you be interested in the second video? That gave us the composite, which helped us identify what the land was in the north, which came from the first video. The real issue is what's the elevation of the first video, Paul, not the second video, not the Google Earth elevation, not your claim. We want the real elevation. Well, send somebody out there for the real measurements, Paul. And it's not to do with the second video, it's to do with the first video, because there was no claim made on the second video. It was merely an addendum to try and help us work out what we were looking at. The claim was that we see land on the north side of the Isle of Man that shouldn't be there because it's behind the curve of the Earth. That's why I questioned what the land was, because I know the geography of the area and I know what I should and shouldn't see. And that day, I'm looking at land that is clearly on the ball Earth model behind the curve of the Earth. That land needs to be explained. It was either Isle of Man, Scotland, or Ireland. One of them three. I didn't know what it was, and that's why I put it out there. I wanted to know what it was.
Miles has measured 80 feet. Your first video was at 80 feet, so the very, very first one that you ever published was at 80 feet, apparently.
Miles doesn't know how high it is. Miles has no clue how high it is. He hasn't measured, and he guesses incorrectly. So let's just ignore what Miles has to say about the height.
No, actually, let's call Miles on. He says he's measured it at 80 feet for the first video, which is the one that I said was from 35. Let's call Miles Davis, Miles the Liar Davis, Let's see what you've got for your, quote, measurement. Because I bet you it's an extrapolation and a calculation, and it's not a measurement at all, because you've already told us that you didn't have a tape. So if you haven't had a tape on you, Miles, how can you have measured it? You're talking nonsense, Miles. Again.
Yeah, keeps up his reputation. That's okay. You know, we know he's a known liar. He's been on this show and the last show and lied on both of them. Actually on the shows. Been caught out and then stuttered like a moron for the next 20 to 30 minutes while he tries to get his way out of his little lie that he told.
Miles Davis, I'll bet you if you come on camera and show us your face, how does that fit? If you come on camera, show us what you look like, put your name, your face to your name, I'll bet you.
Why does he have to do that? You don't have to do that, LK. Why should he have to show his face? I'm a bit intrigued as to that comment. Why would he have to do that?
Because if he gets this wrong, and we can prove that, I mean, me and Ranty have been there, and you've seen the evidence yourself, Nath. If he's claiming that the lower observation video was done at 80 feet, and if he claims that he's, quote, measured that, then if we call him on it, he could just disappear into the depths of Facebook, and we never see him again.
Facebook, YouTube,
not Facebook. Yeah, YouTube. He's anonymous. He's just a shadow.
But that's the same, you know, the same applies even now. You know, he has very little credibility on YouTube. He's not popular. You know, who cares? I mean, that's my attitude. Like, literally, who cares if he shows his face or not? He's a nobody.
Yeah, but I'll bet him if he shows his face. If he doesn't show his face, then I don't need to do anything unless he shows his evidence, and then we'll debunk it like we have done with all of his evidence.
I don't know. I respect his anonymity. If he wants to remain anonymous, that speaks volumes.
I don't mind his anonymity. I mind his anonymity when he's trying to place bets, though, because how would recall the bet in, though? How would that happen? It's not going to work, is it?
This is just some of the tricks that they like to play. They like to drag you into bets about things. It's like, guys, this debate is about why we see things that should not be there on a sphere, or they shouldn't be appearing if you live on a sphere, and yet they do, consistently. So bets about elevations is just nonsense. We see things that physically shouldn't be there on your model. This has been proven to you time and time again, and we've pointed out that the people who accept it are hologram-believing fantasists, and the people who don't are idiots.
Even the tape measure was nowhere near bloody 80 feet. What a ridiculous idiot.
Tell you what, Miles.
That's before the trig.
Miles, I'll bet you my channel that the lower observation height's not 88 feet or 80 feet. If you come on screen and show your face.
I hate this.
That's the deal.
Who cares? Just point out that there's no curvature. You know, this observation height thing that they want to keep you on is a straw man. A complete and total straw man. There's no curve, lads. Tell us why there's no curve. Tell us why it's repeatable. Tell us why they've gone back and found that Moorgord Lighthouse is in exactly the same position it was on this exceptional day you think you had with slightly looming non-standard refraction. That's not the case. They've gone back, they've replicated it. The lighthouse hasn't budged a smegging inch. It's in exactly the same place. So unless you want to claim that you've got perfect conditions for refraction on two totally different days, you know, your nonsense gets more and more ridiculous as time goes by and these observations are repeated. The bottom line is, there's no curve observed. Nothing's obscuring the view. It's not 600 feet behind. It's not 600 feet below your feet. It hasn't dropped away from you. Nothing of the sort is occurring in these images. Nothing like that. Because the Earth's not a sphere. The Earth's obviously and observably flat. You've got nothing to challenge it with except this straw man. That's all you've got. And we keep saying to you, if you want to attack the elevations quoted on Google, be our guest. So far, you've gone and attacked the elevations on the Ordnance Survey maps and proved that they're absolutely inaccurate. Well done, lads. Well done. That's what you rely upon after giving up the globe as an accurate model of your world. However, the rest of the world still sees that as a model, and that's what we're testing. You don't have to accept that. We don't care. What we have proven is there's no curvature. Nothing is in the way of that lighthouse. Nothing's obscuring it. It's not dropped 600 feet. Now, I'd like an explanation from the globe heads. Not about a straw man. Not about some random observation that Miles made and didn't measure. About why we see no curvature between St. Bees and Moorgord Lighthouse. Why?
Paul reckons it's exactly where they would expect it to be on a
curved
curved
isn't.
Earth.
It should be 600 feet below your feet, and there should be a 170-foot wall of earth curve obscuring our view, Paul.
Hang on, Miles Davis has just said nothing should be in the way of the lighthouse.
Yes, there should.
Absolutely
169
agree.
feet to be precise of earth
technically,
wall.
there should be nothing. Technically, there should be nothing in the way. However, there is atmosphere in the way, and that is at the lower points. Evidence with when I did the video about the boat, and when I produced the composite of different elevations when I was taking an image of the boat again at St. Bees, the boat disappeared, even though there was nothing in the way of it. It was just air that was in the way of it. Air was just between me and the boat, but the air made the boat disappear.
Yeah, there's your explanation for why we don't see Ramsey. Ramsey is below the observation position and not visible. If he went higher, he would be able to see it, as Ranty has done. He's gone considerably higher and you can see it, which we showed yesterday. But the bottom line is, it's below his observation position. Everything below his observation gets washed out to refraction. As you go higher, that gets minimised at altitude. That's how it works. Again, this will be explained on Chris's model in the next week. So he will explain exactly this using the real world observations taken, and he will match them up with a model that concisely explains exactly what's being seen. Unlike the globe model, which according to that, we shouldn't see any of it.
Ranty, can I just direct your attention to Al Kay's message? Al Kay has claimed that the lighthouse is not visible at night from 40 feet on the step. Well, guess what, Al Kay? From the point where Miles Davis was stood at the top of that little triangle bit that you guys think's 40 feet that we've spent the whole show discussing, you can see that lighthouse at Mackhold flashing away. You can see it at night time because me and Ranty have done it. You can see it from that elevation. That is a problem.
So,
I'll say it again, just so I'm very clear.
Yeah,
that Miles can you repeat that? To repeat myself 3 times. From the triangle-shaped car park where Miles did his 40 feet claim of elevation, at night time, you can see Mackle Lighthouse flashing away. That is a problem.
Yes, Paul's saying, we spent so long saying it's negligible. It is negligible, and we'll demonstrate precisely how negligible it is.
The Tide asks, was it romantic? It was glorious.
Did you want me to be presenting this? Whoever's got it up, is this
Ranty?
I'll stick it up. Give me a second.
This is just in response again to Miles, who said, if there's nothing in the way of it, how come you can't see it? Okay. So from an elevation of 60 feet, we saw all of the boat, nothing in the way of it. There is nothing in the way of the boat again at a lower elevation, nothing in the way apart from air. Nothing in the way, but we can't see the boat. We can see it disappearing. We can see it blending into the vanishing line. And when we go down even further, where's the boat gone?
Can you start that again, Ranty? I've only just started screen sharing you. Sorry.
Right, okay. So yeah, 60 feet, we see all of the boat. It's there, there's nothing in the way, we can see it. When we lower our elevation, the boat starts to disappear. But again, there's nothing in the way of this. There is no obstruction in the way, there's just sea and air. So what's causing this to disappear? It's a straight on view, we're looking straight at it. Why is the boat disappearing? Why is the boat disappearing? The further we go down, the more it disappears. Yeah? So when you say, how come we can't see this and that and the other of this part of 30, 40, 50 miles away, it's simply because at some point you have to go through a certain amount of air that creates this kind of obstruction.
Yeah, Chris termed it the circle of confusion in terms of that, what Anthony describes as a negligible layer of refraction, but it's still there, and everything below your elevation is obscured.
Can I just ask Miles to answer me a question in chat? If we can see Mackle Lighthouse flashing away from the point that you saw where you were at the car park, at that elevation height that you put at 40 feet, and we said was no higher than 29, if we could see the Mackle Lighthouse flashing away, doing its flash pattern, and it's at the right bearing, and it's not easy to record this on a camera because it would be essentially black. Nobody would consider it credible. But if you came there in real person, real world, and basically had a drink with us and sat there on the side on a deck chair watching the sun go down and then watch Mackle Lighthouse flashing away in all its glory from the elevation that we're sat at on that car park where you got your 40 feet claim from, would you say and accept that that would be a problem or indeed an impossibility on your model, Miles? It's a straight yes or a straight no.
Don't need a straight yes or no from a liar like Miles Davis, to be honest. I know you want to ask him, and you know you want him to get him to concede, which they will never do, even when they've lied through their back teeth and been caught out. So who cares? The fact is, it is a massive problem. It should not be visible, and it is, because, as we keep saying, there is no obstruction, there is no Earth curve. What we see is only represented on a flat plane. That's the bottom line. I don't care whether or not you accept it.
Well,
Paul Voigt believes that the images that I've just displayed is the boat going over the horizon. That's an issue, you see, because the top of the masts and the actual horizon line themselves barely change in elevation between each other. The only thing that changes is the disappearing of the boat. How do you explain that? Sorry, were you about to say something, okay? Okay.
It was me. Sorry, Randy. Well, they can't. It's obvious reflection and all that. But it was about. I've got a question, right? It's kind of. If there was a lighthouse, say for example, you were sat in your chair looking at that lighthouse, and you said it was quite dim. Right? See if you got closer. Would that light get brighter as you got closer?
Yeah, of course it would. Subject to the inverse square law.
Right. That's okay. That's fine. I kind of knew it would, but I just wanted a second opinion there. Well, there's proof. There's proof of something as well. So, but I just need to go away and think about it now, because it's quite interesting that what you just said there, Anthony.
Well, here's the thing, Miles.
What height
Miles
was
is
the actual top of the Morgul Lighthouse? What actual height was it?
210 feet.
And that was from the water level up to the top.
Sure. Now, it's a matter of fact that you can see that lighthouse flashing at the elevation that Miles claimed was 40 feet, that we said was no more than 29. It's a fact. You can see it. Now, Miles claims
How high
that
above the horizon was it, Anthony? The light.
What? Say again.
How high above the horizon was the light shining? Was it right on the horizon, or could you?
You can't even see the horizon. The horizon blends into the background. It's dark. You can just see. You can see roughly where it is, but you couldn't pinpoint where the horizon actually is because it's pitch black. So that's why it's hard to prove this point. But Miles claims that he had.
You should have tried to take a long exposure, Anthony. You would have seen that then. That's what you're next if you're down there again. Take a long exposure.
Ali, do us a favour. Just do a bit of research on the P900 with regards to long exposure at night. It's particularly bad at it. So yes, I can do it, but I won't be able to use a P900. It'll have to be one of her cameras. But Miles claims that he's observed the lighthouse flashing at different elevations, but he's not seen it at the lower. I'm calling him a liar because I've seen it. And Ranty, did you see it the other night with us?
Yeah, there was me and the missus went out, had a look at it too.
So it can be seen from the point where Miles claims it can't, but he claims he couldn't see it. So I'm going to call him a liar, and I'm going to. But the problem is,
come on, no, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it. So far, we've called him on lies. No, he may not have seen it from that elevation. You can't call him a liar for that. That's a bit unfair.
Yeah, let's stop using that. Because they use it all the time. They've kind of.
Yeah, we're overusing that word. I agree, Ali. I agree.
I think half of Miles's videos have in the title "liar" somewhere.
Yes,
I think almost all of his videos do. Right, let me ask this question then. Would it be acceptable to the ballers if we set the P900 up on a stand and then we got the same flash pattern as is described on the lighthouse if we showed where we were? Now, obviously, we can't show what we're looking at because it's going to be pitch black. But if we see a light that flashes in the same flash pattern as the lighthouse at Mackle, would that be acceptable evidence to the ballers that we're looking at Mackle Lighthouse? Because if it would be and they would accept it, then we can do that. But I always took the view that they're never going to accept it because they'll argue that it could be any light and we wouldn't be able to prove that it was that specific light. That was my view on it, and that's why I didn't do it, because they wouldn't accept it. It's a black screen with a flashing light on it. We've had that before with Sean. Sean said it was the what do you call it? The buoy, and he was quite right. But nonetheless, it was essentially a black video with a flashing light in the middle of it at some point, and it's like really difficult to discern what it is that you're looking at best. and obviously we never get any benefit of any doubt. So if we got the flash pattern of Mackle Lighthouse, which was it two? I think it was 2 2-second or 3 2-second flashes every 30 seconds. If we got that, would that be acceptable? There you go. Mackle Lighthouse, 3 flashes every 30 seconds. If we got that from that car park, Miles, would you accept it? Black and white, straightforward question, yes or no. Would you accept it?
They wouldn't accept it if you
no,
saw
hang on.
if you was
Give
in
him
the
the
water.
chance. Let's give him the chance. Would you accept it, Miles, from that car park where you were, if we showed where we were when we filmed it, and then we showed that flash, flash, flash?
Why do you keep pandering to them?
Because I
was going to ask the same question. Who cares what they think? If you can capture that, wonderful. I'll present it, and we'll present it as what it is, another proof that the Earth is not a sphere. Whether or not Miles accepts it, I couldn't care less.
I couldn't care less.
I could. I want Miles to admit that he will accept it if we produce it and then backtrack on it and flip-flop again for a third time.
I want to know. I want to know how that guy let himself in the house.
Yeah.
And who that guy was.
So, Miles, can you give me a straight yes or a straight no? Would you accept it if we proved that we were on your car park and we got the flash sequence that was consistent with Mackle Lighthouse? If we pointed the camera to the horizon and got nothing else but a black scene, but the flashlight pattern was there, would you accept that that would be Mackle Lighthouse at that elevation, therefore it cannot be a ball? Yes or no? If the evidence is accurate, yes, I'll accept. Better still, if I'm there at the same time, okay, Miles, we'll sort it out. We'll sort it out. Me and you will sort it out, and we can go there with other people, so that it's not just me and you. Witnesses protection and all that nonsense. But we'll do it. It can be seen from your car park at night time on a clear night. Misty or a frosty or a cold night or whatever, and there's stuff in the way, you're not going to see it. It is 30 miles away. You need a clear night, but you can see it.
Well, I got to go, guys.
Well, that's
I have to
pretty
go
much
too.
it, actually, so I'm probably going to round out there. So with that, I'm going to say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this show. If you've not done so already, be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.